A Life for Grace, written by Van Heerling, read by Brittany Goodwin. An uncertain voice turns my head. A man with a slight bend in his back and a shock of white hair stands with a tray of soup, 3 neatly stacked napkins, and a cup of coffee. "I don't mean to be a bother," he says, and then stops as if he has forgotten what he is about to say. Unsteady hands jitter his tray as the coffee and soup flirt along the edges of the cup and bowl. "This is the first time I have left my home in 8 days. Gracie passed away, and I have eaten alone since." His eyes shift to the floor and then come back to me. "I saw that you might be alone, and was hoping you might indulge a man with a sick heart by sitting with him." My plastic container carrying my Caesar salad pops from the sudden indent of my thumb. My heart drops as I stare into his fragile eyes. He stands before me, rain-spotted in his wrinkled button-down shirt and gray slacks, waiting. "I wouldn't ask you to speak or even pay any attention to me," he continues. "It would be helpful enough just to sit and have a meal with someone other than an empty chair and the ghosts within my mind." His gnarled hands try to steady his tray again. I am not sure what to say. I have an unbridled urge to embrace him. Instead, I press my lips together, forming a smile, nod, and intertwine my forearm within the crux of his elbow. It is as if I can feel the ache of his loss shudder through me. I guide him to the nearest table and set my water and salad down, and then reach for his tray. "I have it," he says. I wait for him to sit in case he needs a hand. "I wouldn't be worth a pinch of salt if I sat down before a kind young lady like yourself. Please sit." I do, and then watch as he settles in. It isn't long before our paper napkins find their rightful place, and we begin to eat. He wipes his mouth, and then seems to notice that I haven't looked away from him. "Don't let me stop you from doing what you normally do. I meant it when I said I didn't want to be a pest." "You're not a pest." Regrettably, these are my first words with him. "Really, I don't mind if you fiddle with your phone or do whatever it is people do these days." "I left my phone at the office." "I'm sorry. I hear that can be quite an ordeal, and to make matters worse, a weird old man has asked for your company." "It's not as bad as you might think." "Oh, good. I'm shaking things up then," he said with a hopeful smile. I can't help but be curious about him as my eyes wander across his life-worn face. "Will you tell me about her?" As soon as it escapes my mouth, I know I have intruded. "I'm sorry, Don't be. I asked you to join me," he says. His fist tightens around a balled-up napkin in his left hand. I doubt he is aware of the strangulation. After a moment, his hand relaxes and the tension drains from his face. "Unselfish. She's unselfish. Was unselfish. I have trouble with the tense." "I don't mind," I say. "Good, because I haven't been able to manage it well lately." 2 fingers stretch through the handle of his coffee. "Oh, that's awful," he says after a healthy sip. "Yes, it is," I chuckle. He then attempts a second taste. It's equally repulsing. "Then why go back for another?" I ask. "I've got nothing else." I am met with a smile and blue eyes that seem to be sparkling back to life. "Let me get you something better to drink?" "Oh, the trouble, dear, no," he says as he dismisses the thought with a gesture of his hand. "It wouldn't be." "Gracie made awful coffee, too," he says, ignoring my second offer. "She did all the work. I hadn't realized just how much. Bills, keeping house, cooking, and I'm sure a dozen other things I have yet to discover." "You don't have any help?" He shakes his head. "Kids?" "No, they have their own lives and there's an ocean between us. It's too much." There is pain here, pain I am not willing to prod. "In my haste, I must apologize. I have yet to formally introduce myself. Harrison Clark. Harry to most." I've always liked the name Harry. It reminds me of strength and honesty. I say as our hands meet for a moment. "I may be the first one to disappoint you then." "I doubt that," I say. "I have failed your criterion 6 times since I sat down. Never mind these last few days. Yesterday I stood in my kitchen for an hour. Just stood there." Seems reasonable to me, considering. And to ask a stranger for company is courageous, and some might say as honest as anyone could expect to be. I think you're being hard on yourself. Perhaps if I knew your name, we would cease to be strangers. Yes, sorry, I say. I was hoping you wouldn't have noticed. Maybe I'm being the dishonest one. Oh, that's fine. It's a different world after all. Less safe than it used to be. Shame, really. No, nothing like that. I'm not sure I should tell you my name. Yes, fine. Like I was saying, you can never be too careful. I should have taken the clue. Smart girl. Smart girl, he says as he shakes his head and then sips his coffee again. No, it's not that. Promise me you'll be okay? He nods. Gracie, I say. An inaudible gasp holds him for a moment. I reach for his hand. You said you would be all right. Of all the people in the world. I fork at my salad while he grasps our wild happenstance. Harry? I ask after a while. Yes, Gracie? It's hard for him to say my name. Why this restaurant? Why today? I ask. Seemed like a nice place to get out of the rain. Would you do me a favor? I don't see why I wouldn't. Meet me here tomorrow, will you? A heavy sigh escapes him. Tomorrow? Yes, I say. This is my lunch stop at least 3 times a week. I could use the company. You want to have lunch with me again? Beats being alone, right? The lunches became dinners, and dinners became countless nights in. Before long, I find myself as his caretaker of sorts. Sundays are my favorite. I never miss a game of chess or an opportunity to tidy up. Over several months and many spilled cups of tea, I learned all about Gracie and their life together. She was a woman of gumption and industry. It was easy to understand how he could have loved her for 57 years. But now it is my turn to endure the present and dote upon the past. There will be no more stories between terrible sips of coffee or playful chiding. I miss him. My Sundays are quiet again, and I am left with nothing more than the ghosts in my head and an empty chair. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please consider sharing it with a close friend. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss the next story. You may also join us at www.thedrippingpen.com.